Stop asking if World War III is coming and start asking if it's already here.
This week, Israel bombed a peace summit in Qatar. Russia just violated NATO airspace, and here at home, extremists are marching on our national monuments.
This isn't a warning anymore. This is a test.
Trump has already rebranded the Pentagon as the Department of War, and in Nepal, leaders feel so emboldened they are gunning down protesters in the streets.
If you're still saying it won't happen here, you need to wake up. These are the sparks of global war, and Canada, we cannot afford silence.
We're calling this episode World War III, not because it's catchy, but because it's the reality we're drifting toward if silence, division, and indifference continue.
In Europe, Poland shot down Russian drones that violated its airspace during Moscow's massive overnight strike on Ukraine.
This is NATO territory. Article 5 says an attack on one is an attack on all. And yet, instead of action, what we're seeing is hesitation, more monitoring, and more statements.
It's the first time NATO forces have had to directly engage Russian assets in alliance airspace. That's a red line that we were told could never be crossed. But it's been crossed, and the world responds with caution, not conviction.
Let's call it what it is. Putin is testing the West, and he's learning that every test comes with no real consequence. That hesitation only emboldens him to push further.
Poland closed its airports, NATO scrambled jets, and Zelensky called it an extremely dangerous precedent for Europe. And still, leaders frame it as a one-off, like it can just be explained away.
But this isn't a one-off, it's escalation. And here's a contrast. When America was attacked on 9/11, NATO stood shoulder to shoulder. Everyone answered the call.
So why, when Poland and Ukraine are under deliberate attack, is the world holding back? Why is solidarity suddenly reduced to statements and stern warnings?
Because Putin knows the truth. The strongest country in NATO won't act. He knows that Trump won't lift a finger against him. And why would he? Every election interference campaign, every wave of Russian social media propaganda, well, it all worked, and Trump is back in power.
And that's the calculation, right? Putin can escalate because his biggest obstacle has already been removed. The United States under Trump is no longer the backbone of NATO. It's actually the weak link.
But here's what I don't understand. Why do Trump's followers want this? Was life so bad under peace and prosperity? Was stability really that unbearable?
Because you know what? What they're choosing now isn't strength. It's surrender to Putin, to chaos, to war. And the rest of the world is left to pay the price.
Because make no mistake, every moment of hesitation tells Putin the world is too divided and too afraid to stop him.
Israel struck Hamas leaders in Doha, Qatar, a country that's been mediating ceasefire talks for almost 2 years. Qatar called it a flagrant violation of international law, and the UN Secretary General condemned it.
And Prime Minister Carney didn't hold back either. His words, an intolerable expansion of violence and an affront to Qatar's sovereignty. But what happens beyond words? Nothing.
When mediators are bombed, peace is assassinated too. And the world shrugs as Netanyahu says, "We take full responsibility."
What kind of ally thinks blowing up a peace table is justifiable? When does self-defense stop being defense and start being the deliberate sabotage of any path to peace?
Attacks on mediators are attempts to blow up diplomacy itself. Hamas confirmed 5 members of their political team were killed while discussing a ceasefire proposal.
And remember, Israel has already killed more than 60,000 people in Gaza since October 2023. It's escalation unfolding in front of us while the world does nothing.
At the same time, Israel ordered 700,000 people to leave Gaza City immediately. Families were told to walk through rubble towards so-called safe zones, the same zones that have been bombed before.
International monitors classify Gaza as being in famine. Children are starving to death as we speak. Roads are blocked, food is gone, and families are sleeping in the streets with nowhere left to turn.
And the IDF claims this is about separating civilians from Hamas fighters. But the pattern is undeniable. Move civilians, bomb the zones they're herded into, and call it military necessity.
Let's just call it what it is. They don't care about people's safety. It's forced displacement inside famine. And once again, the world responds with words, not actions. They're issuing statements, holding press conferences, all this while children starve and civilians bury their dead in the rubble.
When does defense become genocide? When do security measures become war crimes? Now, we've asked this before, and here we are again, because thugs and dictators are allowed to cross line after line without consequence.
Netanyahu and his followers call this a show of strength. But strength is not bombing families into famine. That's not defense, that's annihilation.
And the harder question is this: how did the world fall so far? When did we become so numb that mass starvation and citywide evacuations don't trigger more than condemnation tweets?
And while Putin and Netanyahu escalate abroad, Trump is busy at home rebranding the Pentagon as the Department of War.
He says it's about history, but let's call it what it is. It's a signal. The world's largest military power is shifting from defense to aggression, first on its own people, and then what?
He pairs that with memes about apocalypse now and mass ice raids. They're clearly trying to intimidate their citizens.
And for Putin, it's the best news possible, because the strongest member of NATO is too busy turning its arsenal inward and weaponizing fear against its own people.
That's why this Department of War rebrand matters. It tells Putin and every authoritarian watching that the United States won't stand in their way. The superpower that once anchored global security is now the weak link pulling the chain apart.
But here's the bigger question. What are U.S. lawmakers doing? Where is Congress while Trump militarizes the country and hands Putin free rein?
Because silence is complicity. If members of Congress stay quiet, if Republican leaders nod along, then we have to ask, who's in on it? Who decided that empowering Trump and emboldening Putin is worth the cost of democracy?
The world sees this, allies see this, and so do the dictators. If America's own lawmakers won't stand up to Trump, why would anyone else?
And in Nepal, protesters filled the streets after the government tried to ban social media. What began as anger over censorship exploded into a wider movement against corruption and nepotism.
The response? Live ammunition. Of these 22 people killed, Parliament set ablaze, the Prime Minister has resigned, and still Nepal security forces double down with curfews and threats of military control.
And here's the connection. Governments like this feel emboldened. If Israel can starve and displace civilians, if Russia can send drones into NATO airspace, and if the United States can militarize against its own people, why would Nepal's leaders think twice about firing on their own citizens?
And that's the danger, isn't it? Brutality at the top doesn't just stay at the top, it trickles down. When powerful nations normalize authoritarian tactics, it gives every corrupt leader a permission slip to crush dissent at home.
And Nepal isn't alone. We've seen it in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar. Now in Kathmandu, where citizens are demanding accountability, they're met with bullets. Because dictators everywhere are learning the same lesson. The world doesn't stop them.
And until that changes, every capital that burns, every protest crushed, every life lost is proof that silence doesn't just enable dictators, it multiplies them.
And if you think this wave of extremism stops at foreign borders, think again. Over Labor Day weekend, masked extremists marched openly at Queenston Heights in Niagara.
They wore uniforms, they carried flags, they posed in front of a national monument as if to claim it as their own. And they weren't hiding, because you know what? They don't have to anymore.
We'd been here before. The convoy rolled into Ottawa waving Confederate flags and swastikas, and Pierre Poilievre offered them donuts.
Now, those same movements are emboldened. From Ottawa's convoy to Niagara's massed march, the through line is absolutely clear. Silence gives them space, and political cover gives them legitimacy.
And just like we've seen around the world, when thugs realize no one will stop them, they push further.
So, Canada has a choice. Do we treat Niagara as just another ugly rally, or do we recognize it for what it is? The same authoritarian creep we see in Moscow, in Gaza, in Washington, and now right here at home.
Because World War III isn't just fought with bombs and drones. It's fought with propaganda, with division, and with leaders who think they can ride the chaos to power.
And if we don't stop it here, in our own streets, then we're not just watching history repeat itself, we're letting it.
So from Gaza to Poland, from Washington to Nepal, and right here in Niagara, the pattern is the same. Authoritarians test the limits, and when the world stays silent, they push further.
World War III doesn't start with one big explosion. It starts like this, piece by piece, line by line, until it feels too late to stop.
Canada can't afford to be silent, not when allies are under attack, not when famine is used as a weapon, and not when extremists are marching on our own monuments.
We've said it before, silence is complicity, and complicity is surrender. And that's why we do this every week. We can't sit by and watch the world we love fall apart.
So what can you do? Well, don't just watch us. Check out others who are calling this out too. Midas Touch Canada, Guard the Leaf, Klaus Kellerman, The Rational National, The Bill Kelly Podcast, and Naughty Nana Doos.
And if you want our unfiltered take, head over to our Substack Unfiltered North. There's no spin, no ads, just the truth.
Because democracy doesn't defend itself, it needs all of us. So share this video, talk to your friends and family, and spread the word. Elbows up, Canada.